Good day, and welcome to the new season of Mindful, the podcast of the Canadian Psychological Association. We're gearing up for our annual convention, which is taking place in Calgary starting on Friday of this week. And I wanted to start this season before the convention began, in large part because my first guest is the artist Betty Albert. The CPA commissioned Betty to create a t-shirt design for t-shirts that we're going to be selling at the convention. They're Every Child Matters orange t-shirts, and the proceeds from their sale at the convention will be going to Indigenous activists organizations making a difference here in Canada. Now, June is Pride Month, and we're going to talk a lot about Pride and specifically issues affecting trans and gender diverse communities over the course of this season. It's also Indigenous History Month, and that's where we're going to begin with this first episode. Betty Albert is an Indigenous artist whose works have been shown around the country, particularly in the wake of the horrific discoveries at the sites of former residential schools in recent years. We're going to talk about that and also about art itself, something I'm keen to bring to the show as I know very little about the art world myself. My name is Eric Bowman. I'm the communications person at the CPA. Welcome to Mindful.
My name is Betty Albert, and my art name is Wabi Miguel. It means white feather in Cree, and it was my father that gave me that name, so I use it when I sign my art. I've lived mostly in Northern Ontario, most of my life anyways, and like I was just telling you, I go back and forth between Winnipeg and, actually not Winnipeg, I go to Selkirk.
Okay.
That's where my son and my daughter-in-law and my 3 grandchildren live. And I have a lot of connection with Winnipeg because I've been going there, like I said, for 21 years to Sundance. So I have a great big Sundance family, and it's just beautiful to have that kind of connection there. And I love Manitoba. I just love it. And I love all the people there, and all my friends are there. And so this year, of course, I won't be going, but I will certainly miss it. We're going to my son's convocation. I'm so proud of him. Of course, I tell everybody that he just got his PhD in political science. And he got a job here in Northern Ontario for the Mosquitoes Tribal Council, which is our tribal council. And that's the reason why I'm here, just to support them while my daughter-in-law is finishing her master's, and as a psychotherapist, by the way.
Oh,
and,
terrific.
Yeah. So I'm helping them out, and then I'll see what happens after. I might stay here a little longer or go back to Manitoba. It depends who needs me the most. And so I have a traveling studio. Actually, after all these years of going back and forth, I can fit most everything that I need, everything that I own in my car. That's all of my art, my brushes, everything I need to produce art, and just fill up my car and go to either Manitoba or come back to Northern Ontario. I've been painting for 30 years now.
That sounds amazing. I have my own little podcast studio that I can move with me where I go, but
yeah.
that takes up way more of my luggage than I would like it to.
It's something that I perfected over the years, how to pack. I have a suitcase that I've had for, I forget how many years I've had it, but it fits all of my brushes, all of my paint. It's a huge suitcase, and it's got wheels, thank God. And I get one of my sons to lift it up and put it in my car, and pretty well everything I need. Then it's my clothes, my boots, my winter coat. Of course, I have a goose, what are those? I can't remember the name of that company that makes those really warm jackets. Canada Goose thing.
Oh,
what is it?
Something like that. Yes, I can't remember either.
Yeah, for Winnipeg, because I was there one year and it was like minus 50, I think. For about a week and a half, and so you need to really have some good gear when you go to Manitoba for winters.
I lived in Winnipeg for 1 year when I was 8 years old, and I remember that there were days where school was closed, not because it was too snowy like it is here in Ottawa, but because it was too cold to go outside and get in the school bus and go to school.
Yeah. There was a couple of mornings I woke up, opened the curtain, and went, "Oh my God, ice fog!" Closed the curtain, went back to bed.
Yeah.
Not going anywhere today. I felt kind of sorry for all the poor folks that have to go, in that But it's very cold in Winnipeg. That's why I guess they call it Winterpeg. But anyways,
I expect so. I also remember that in the spring, there were days where school was closed because there were too many mosquitoes outside.
yeah, yeah. That well, there's a lot of that in Northern Ontario. I'm pretty well immune to mosquito bites or any kind of bite for that matter. Growing up in Northern Ontario, and I grew up in a small little village just north of Kapuskasing. And it was isolated, and there was a bus on tracks that used to take us to town. Only every second day there was a bus, but it was just like muskeg and flies like you would not believe. We used to wear nylons over our heads, those
Right.
yeah, we all looked like little aliens out there, but that was the only way to survive. And I get a mosquito bite now. It doesn't even show. I mean, I have such an immune system to fight those mosquito bites. But I started painting when I was young, about 16, not really painting, but drawing. And I did it all the way through. And then when I met my father, I was adopted. And my adopted parents are French Canadian. Serendipity or a bunch of series of events happened, and by truly accident, I found my adopted mother and my adopted father. And I always had this thing about Native ceremonies. My father used to tell me about them, and it was always so fast. My adopted father, and I thought, wow, they have something there that's really powerful. He was telling me about the shake tent. It always struck me as being, wow, I'd really want to experience that. When I met my father, he's Cree. My father is Cree from Moose Factory, that area. He was born in Attawapiskat. His name was Lindbergh Ludet. He was the first Native commercial pilot in Canada.
Okay.
And so he was just a young guy, and the flying was a big way of transportation up north, and he used to hang around the Moosonee airport, and they kind of took a liking to him, and he was interested in flying, so the pilots used to give him books and stuff and help him out. Eventually he went and wrote his exam, and he topped it. He aced it out of the group, and he became the first commercial Native American pilot in Canada. And then he owned his own airline and did really well with it, retired a millionaire at 45, and moved to Florida and went shrimping. And then came back to Northern Ontario and got involved in Native politics. He was one of the first ones to start the Anishinaabe Nation and the Mushkegowuk Tribal Council, and he was Grand Deputy Chief and chief of one of the First Nations up here, and that's when I met him. And I was applying to university, and he said, no, you don't do that. You already have a job. You're an artist. I had shown him my art, and he started supporting me through my art career, and that's how I got started.
That's great. Now, can you tell me a little bit about the shake tent? What does that entail?
Well, it's like a communication device. Like there are 5 poles that they put up, and there are bells on the 5 poles, and it's surrounded by a tarp. The practitioner, the person that goes into the shake tent, has a rattle. They hold the pole, the main pole, and it starts to shake. It goes back and forth like this. And people come and give their tobacco and ask questions. But it used to be you used to be able to communicate with other families. It was a means of communication.
Okay,
and,
from a distance, I guess.
Yeah. And they'd find out where the for the Northern Crees, they'd find out where the best place to be to get geese or to get moose or caribou, depending on how far north you went, but up the James Bay coast where the caribous are. And also about medicines to use to treat certain things. And yeah, it was a communication device. Yeah.
Interesting. So you didn't go to university. You decided, I'm going to do art instead. Your father encouraged you. At that time, were you doing Indigenous style art, or was it something different?
No, I wasn't. No, we moved to a reserve here in Northern Ontario called Wagashig, and he was chief then. or he had been chief. He just had, anyways, we moved there, and we started a little art group. And of course, I had to change my style, and it was weird because I had a dream, and woke up, and right away I started to draw that dream, and an image came to me, and it was in a stylized a woman holding a little girl's hand. And I just drew it out, and my father said, "That's it, that's it." And then I thought, well, what do I do with this image? It's like, this is it. What do I do with that? And he said, make her move. And it was like, all of a sudden the tap went on, and I just like, oh my God, I can make her move. I can make her do all kinds of stuff. And it never stopped. It still hasn't stopped. I still do basically the same image, but I make her move. And that was like 30 years ago. Yeah.
So 30 years as an artist, how has that been? Was it tough getting started, or was the support of that community enough to get it off the ground right away?
It was kind of like, I got started. I had a friend from Curve Lake, Norman Knott, famous artist actually. He came to our reserve and taught me how to use acrylics, because I was only using a pen and pencil and ink. And what he really taught me was how to play with it, how to just let it do its thing, and how to move, let it move it on its own, and how to use the brushes. And at first it was like, when I was first learning how to use the brush, it was like a little mop going across, I was dragging this little mop.
Yeah.
It was a weird transition from ink, and a pen and a pencil where but anyways, it was fun. And that was again, another moment, aha moment was, just have fun, just play. And again, I've been playing for 30 years. So at first it was really, my father was really enthusiastic about what I was producing. And he was, as soon as I'd finish a piece, he'd take it and he'd go off and sell it. And for me, like for the first 10 years of my career, it was like highway robbery. Like, really? They bought that? Like, oh my God. Like, I never really quite felt like that was, like I had arrived yet. But you know what, I just kept on growing and growing, and it was so encouraging that people were actually buying it. Like, it was shocking. And until I received an award from Anishinaabe Nation, because we were in business by then. We were doing limited editions, lithographs, and selling a lot of art. And he would take it all, fill up the van, we'd frame it, and he'd take it up north, and he'd come back with not a stick left in the van. And it was like, holy moly. And we would just reinvest and buy equipment that we needed for framing and matting. And eventually he went across to the States, and he went to an Indian casino just across in Sault Ste. Marie. It's called Keewatin Casino.
Mm-hmm.
And they were building the casino. And the woman that was running the casino loved my art. And she would say, paint bigger pieces. Eventually I painted a piece that was 14 feet.
Wow.
14. I painted it in a what do you call those, where they put planes, and just a huge garage, like a huge, I can't think of the word.
A hangar, I think.
A hangar. Thank you. Yeah. Anyways, I painted it over a weekend, just the background, and it was the perfect weather. It was humid, and the paint didn't dry because I used acrylics, and I had to go across 14 feet, to blend all the paint, and then we'd flip it around. And once it was done, we rolled it up in a sono tube. We put it in a sono tube and put it on top of the van and tied it up real good and delivered it to the casino. But they were really, really supportive and bought a lot of art. Eventually, I was able to buy a house. So we moved to Fox Lake, Chapel Creek First Nation. That's where I built a house and a studio. And my sons were raised there. And eventually I bought a huge building in Cochrane, and had an gallery there for about 8 years, and also I was printing my own work by then, printing other artists' work with a pigment large format printer. It was I'm going to be 65 this year. So that was like, when I was in my 50s, and I just longed for the day where I could just paint and not worry about selling or framing and it happened. So I've been just painting for the last 12 years. Yeah.
Now, I imagine that when you have a gallery, there's a lot of other artists who want to get into the gallery, and there's a process that goes on there that, you might have to reject people, and then you have to encourage others and that kind of thing. Is that the difficult part of it?
Well, the gallery was only open in the summertime, so we kind of used it as to go along with the tourist season. So what we would have is like big buses coming over from the States, people that were going up to Moosonee on the Polar Bear Express. So we were only open in the summertime, for maybe a little bit in the fall, maybe a little bit earlier in the spring. So we had other artists, but mostly it was, what I was selling. So I didn't really have to do that. I didn't, because we were closed the rest of the year. We were still selling, like we go to shows and stuff like that, but the gallery wasn't open all the time.
And now that you have, for the past 12 years, had the freedom to just go in your studio, paint, create, how has that changed what you're doing? Is it made a difference in the type of art that you do?
Yeah, I've been able to really pay more attention to what I'm doing, like take my time, be more precise with what I want. Yeah, it's changed my art. Not that I was, not doing that before, but I can explore different things. I can be more, so I've added more detail in what I'm doing now. And it's given me the opportunity to explore other things, which is really a lot of fun. As a matter of fact, I have my computer here, but I bought another computer. I really love digital art.
Oh yeah,
that's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying doing that. So I had to learn how to use Photoshop in order for me to print large format prints so that I could adjust the painting. Like I would do my own photography and put it on Photoshop and adjust it so that, I'd take the glare out and fix it up so that it was nice and then print it. And that was years ago, and that's all I really learned out of it. But I knew that there was more to that. Like I could see all the tools, but I didn't really have time at that time. But now I do. So of course I taught myself all the shortcuts and how to use, and I have a little a Wacom tablet that I can use with Photoshop along with, I'm having a lot of fun with that.
Man, that's one thing I wish I had the skills in Photoshop. Every time I open it to touch something up or adjust something, I have to Google how to do it and follow the steps, and then I can just barely make something happen. And that's all the ability I have. But
oh, it's so much fun when you learn, how to, like what I can do. Like I'll take a photo of a background that I've done, like I've actually painted. I'll take a photo of it, bring it into Photoshop, and start cutting pieces out and using it and putting shadows and making it round and adding it, and maybe add it to another background that I had before and bring it in, and it's limitless what you can do in Photoshop, and it's been a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to setting up my other computer that I bought, because this one here is really slow and it's so disappointing, when you're trying to do something. So just to have fun with it, just to see what I can, and of course, like being able to bring my style into the Photoshop is another thing too. It's a challenge. It's fun.
yeah. Yeah, I imagine it is, right? I imagine every artist has their style, and then to transfer it to a different medium and a different, technology, I guess, would be an interesting task.
Yeah. And I like when I was in Winnipeg, I have Lawrence Martin he sells my art, and I don't have to sell it, which is good. You should never, artists should never sell their art. They'd be giving it away all the time. So if somebody loves a piece, I'm practically going to give it, I will. So I have to go through someone who can do that. And he's been doing it for 20 years now. And so he called me up and say, you should do a bigger piece, like maybe a 36 by 48. Okay. I drive from Selkirk to Winnipeg. I go to Art Emporium and I go pick up my canvas, and I'd be home within an hour less, and I would be able to start painting it. Well, I live in Northern Ontario now, where I have to order the canvas. It'll take 2 weeks for it to come, if I'm lucky, because with COVID and all the problems that we've had with supply, it might take longer. Right. So I'm thinking like, well, I have a lot of paint and canvas in Photoshop. I could never run out,
No kidding.
But I'm not going to make that transition completely, but I'm hoping that I can start showing some of my digital art at some point.
That'd be great. Now, let's talk about your style for a moment here. And I brought one of the shirts. The shirts came in that we commissioned you to do for the CPA. And I'm hoping that you can just tell me about this design. What went into it, and what was it that you were conveying here in this image?
So it's Every Child Matters, and that was when the 215 happened, we already knew. My father went to residential school, so we knew all the horrors that happened in those residential schools, and there was no way of, even if you told, like I would tell people, like this was horror, but they still wouldn't get it. They just didn't get it. You know what I mean? Like it was hard to portray, like to have that impact. And then when the 215 happened, it was like, oh, it just opened up the whole thing. And it was just really like, it wasn't shocking because I already knew about the horrors. I already knew it. But it would just like reopen that whole chapter of, and it was like really stunning again. It was, and you know what? It just brought it all back. It was like those little babies, those children looked like my grandchildren. They looked like them. Like they were just those little sweet little children that were taken over and over, generation after generation. It was just like, so I just couldn't sleep. I woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning and just thought, oh, I'm feeling all of this. And, as an artist, you just like what you feel is what goes into the art, and other people feel it. Hopefully other people feel it. And they have been feeling what I've put into my art all these years. But I was really feeling a lot, and I was feeling a lot for everyone, all of us. And I drew out this one image. That's not the one, but I drew out another one, and it was like 30 by 40 canvas, so it was quite large. And it just all came out like just, and then it was finished, and I had the 215 little stars around it. And I took a picture of it, and it was finished by 8 o'clock.
Right.
And I put it on Facebook, which I do a lot. I put my art on Facebook, and it was like, oh my God, I had like 800 and some views by 9 o'clock,
Yeah.
And it was, I sold it by 9:30. I had two organizations that wanted to buy it, and by 9:30 it was sold. It was sold to the Southeast Child and Family Services in Winnipeg. And it was I was getting offers between the Ontario Native Women's Association wanted to buy it. but I said, well, whoever comes in first with, and I sold it to the Southeast, but it just was, it had an impact. This one image, people felt it. And I work with the Artists Against Artists Against Racism, yeah. And they managed to put it on a billboard, that one image. And it was throughout Canada, across the digital billboards. And then I did a few more, which is one of those, that image that you have there. And I did maybe 3 Every Child Matters paintings. And it was just, I needed to get that out of my system. I needed to put it on, and that's how I speak. I don't speak very, this is very rare. I don't do very many interviews or, but anyways, I'm not sure my train of thought went.
That's okay. Well, I very much appreciate you taking the time to do this interview with us here. And I mean, there is something about art that can, I guess, galvanize people or inspire people, but it can also, in a way, move people, right? And in this particular instance, there's a huge reckoning that we have across Canada with what we did in residential schools, right? What was a genocide. And for those of us who haven't really been paying attention, and I would count myself among those, right? I knew about residential schools. I knew that the last one closed in the 90s. I knew that they were terrible. We never, I don't think, took the time to look at the scale of how terrible they were.
Yeah.
And now that we have that reckoning, I think images are able, and paintings like yours are able to, I guess, distill it, right? When you say an image is worth 1,000 words, and hopefully that actually is the case. Do you think that I guess I'm hoping that you can maybe put into words what you think art can do in a moment like this. It's shocking to the rest of us in Canada, but it's uniquely painful for our Indigenous communities who knew about this for so long. And you put your feelings and your emotions into the art that you create. And do you have a hope when you do that art moves people in a certain way, or is it just a self-expression, and whatever people take from it, you're happy with?
Oh, no, my art is always a result of working in a healing capacity with First Nations, that, like, through Sundance and through other healing ceremonies. And it's always come from that place. So we've been dealing with the result of residential schools for me for the last 20 years, because I attend those ceremonies, and the pain and the suffering that people are still going through is immense. And having those ceremonies fuels my creative, it's part of how I create. Where it comes from is from the ceremonies and from the healing that happens at ceremonies. Immense healing happens at Sundance and through sweat lodges and like I was telling you, shake dance. Immense healing happens there. And that is where I'm inspired by that. I'm inspired by the resilience. I could go on and on and on and tell you stories about what I've witnessed. People completely shattered coming to ceremony, and the healing that takes place over time is just their and the victory, the success that comes from that healing is part of what I paint. That's where it comes from.
Thank you to Betty Albert for taking the time to speak with me and for granting me a rare interview opportunity on the Mindful podcast. If you're attending the CPA convention in Calgary this weekend, be sure to pick up one of the t-shirts she designed in the spirit of healing from the residential school's horror with which we are all now grappling. Keep listening for the rest of this season as we discuss Indigenous allyship, transgender rights, and needle fears amid the ongoing pandemic. Mindful is written, produced, hosted, edited, and published by me, Eric Bolman. Our theme music is Avenues by David Taylor.